Okay, Rabbi say, Adkan, thank you very much to my director here, Rabbi Parkov, who did an incredible job. Now let's learn halacha. So Rabbi say, let's do first a chazara. Get your books out, please, on the background. So as we know, the Gemara Daf Lamed Ches, in that short sugya of Trima, came to the conclusion that a barcha on Trima is eitz. However, there's a machlekes rishonim as to what a trima means. The Rambam in Ochus Brachos, Perik Ches, halacha Dalet, wrote on page. Okay, we need to. Who's going to do my book here today? Perik Ches, halacha Dalet, wrote on page 148. Paskins that if one takes tamarim, dates, and mashes them into isa, a paste, best word we can come up with, they remain ha'etz. The Rambam holds that even if a fruit is entirely crushed, it retains its original bracha. And this is Shittas Rambam. Thank you, Daniel. However, the Yochanim say that this is not Das Rabbeinu Rashi HaKadosh. Rashi, Alam Chesam and Aleph. Divya Maskal Trima Mao says that Trima refers to a fruit that has been somewhat crushed up. Takatush Ksas. Rabbeinu Atrumas Hadeshen, in a well-known Tshuva and Simon Chavtes understands that Rashi holds. Therefore, ipso facto, I guess, that if a fruit is completely crushed up, the bracha is SHEHAKOL. This reading of the Rashi leads Rabbeinu Atrumas Hadeshen, a shtickle that we saw last week in detail, and I'm speaking seimech that my Eilam remembers. Trumas Hadeshen says this is a steer in Rashi. Rashi defines something called humlasa. Humlasa. It's a Gemara in Yuma, Daf Pei Aleph Amid Beis. It's a Trumas Hadeshen. Whoever produced it, Yasha Kayach. And the problem is that Rashi says that he implies that one completely, I'll use Rabbi Deutsch's word, pulverizes ginger. Okay, ginger is very important. Halacha, it does not lose its bracha of Adama, even though it is totally smashed. Line 3, what happened to it? Pirish Rashi. Why did it come down here? Let's leave it the original part. Sham. Called over kuch ma'atmin marusa kainu trima. That's Rashi in Barachas. However, Rashi 6 lines down. Vahida humasa Pirish Rashi pay beis. So Peches, the Yuma, 2 more lines down. Hamefatamim, besamim, katush midvash. This is a very important food. He takes besamim in the English language explanation. It is ginger, and you put honey into it. Back to Trumas Hadeshen Astira. Emkein hainu ahid besamim shachukim de kasav maram. So there we have a problem. Because Rashi implies that if it's only shachuk sas, that's a trima. But if it's totally pulverized, it's a SHEHAKOL. Here we have a raya that's something which is completely pulverized, because it's pulverized ginger. That's what shachuk means. Shachuk means pulverized. Is an adama. So we have stira not only in the sugyas, we have a stira in Rashi. Says the Trumas Hadeshen, a very important vart. Yes, Leimar. The reason why ginger is still an adama and retained its original bracha is because this is the way it was manufactured to. This is the way it was designed to be eaten. Can't eat any other way. Oh, Rabbi Sai. Hi, Rabbi Sai. Mashkin bedavar acher shein darkly as tader ma'ochem berusuk. Baf b'sheni ochlukim berurmli. Says to Trumas Hadeshen, that's the only chiluk I can make. But Rabbi Sai, we now have a psak for the Trumas Hadeshen that even a liva de Rashi, if a fruit is normally crushed, it does not leave its original bracha. If it's not normally crushed, and a chinami becomes a SHEHAKOL. This is brought into Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim, Reish Beis, Siv Katan Dalid. No, No, sorry. Siv Zayin, sorry. How could I forget his Zayin? It's $1,000. I apologize. Marem Shamiach Bayad. Let's go quickly. 242. The Mechaber 242. We're going to do our page if you don't mind. We'll come back to this Mishabur in a second. I'm almost there. I'm behind schedule by 10 minutes because we had so much fun with the movies.
Amen.
There's the Ramah. Lefi Zeudin, Belutrin, is Podilia, V'yashon Levarach Lav SHEHAKOL, and the Ramah cites the Trumas Hadesha. The Taiv Lachach Chatzchil Levarach SHEHAKOL. This is the world class machlekes we had last week between Rabbeinu Mechaber, Pasuk like the Rambam, that it should be an 8 because it wasn't Nishtana there, and Mevarach Lam by Pri 8 says the Ramah. No, these whatever Poldia is V'yash Aim Levarach SHEHAKOL, the Taiv Lachach Chatzchil Levarach SHEHAKOL. Baruch Priya by Pri 8 Yatsa, which creates sequential problems, which we will get to if we have time. So Rabbi Sai, what do we do about chocolate? Since the Mechaber brings the Rambam, and now we have a Ramah, but according to the analysis of the Trumas Hadeshen, chocolate should certainly be a Bayre Priya 8, both like the Mechaber and like the Ramah, because it is perfectly normal to pulverize a cocoa bar and turn it in bean and turn it into candy bar. How do we know that it's normal? See?
$1 billion business.
Because you just saw it. $1 billion business. Show more. So now the problem is it should be an 8. This Taina was raised by Rabbeinu Hagadol Bal Minchas Shlomo. I'm going to learn with you inside, share with you this Minchas Shlomo, Chelek Aleph, Siman Sadik Aleph.
Don't you cook
Let's
the
learn
beans?
this inside.
Don't you cook the beans?
Say again?
Don't you have to cook those beans to make it into a chocolate?
Well, I mean, I could have strung you along and not shown you the various pieces of the video, but we know, and I made a point of this over and over again, that there are 12 steps in the process to turn it into a chocolate bar. That's true. But let me ask you a question. If you were to stop that video at the point it was the viscous liquid, the chocolate liquor, what bracha would you agree that was? Problem.
I didn't hear that, but I just came on. I just left my work.
Oh, you missed a movie. Sorry. No, sorry.
I don't have no movies. I'm not allowed to look at movies. It's us, sir.
Yeah. Who's this Joe? Okay. So we'll spar about that another time. We'll spar about that. My youngest.
Anyway, I missed the piece. Go ahead.
You missed the movie. You missed it. However, if you're nice to Park Off, he will rerun the movie for you or send it to you, whatever. Okay. So let's now we're into Hagoyin Bal Minchas Shlomo. The Indian ask Rab Tzvi. Oh, Shtana Lamiyusa. Rabbi Sai, let's first see what the problem is, and then in the second hour, as usual, I have to work with this to make sure the first and the second hours have some sort of a hemshach. But in the second hour, we'll try to resolve the problem. Here, I'm going to lay out the problem in detail. And then in the second hour, I'll just reference Rabbi Say L'Chayre, we have a problem. What's that problem? Some Zalman stipulates up front that he knows he wasn't asked this shaila, but he wasn't asked this shaila. Rabbi Say, is it a Nates or is it a SHEHAKOL? He starts off by telling you the Minhag Olam is SHEHAKOL. By the way, you'll see in a moment this creates a big problem here because the various bracha books cite Rosh Zalman differently. I said this to my son-in-law over Shabbos. And he is an expert in chocolate, having said chaburis in this when they learned Chaytzim V'Varchim in yeshiva, And he told me, is Mahalach? And I told him the Welt said Zalman said it's at 8. He says, absolutely not. And he went on a 5-minute drasha. So let's see what you paskin. Nice gedele Torah. I think this is present tense. Nasati v'nasati b'zem gedele Torah. Who's he talking about? Anybody know? Only person I can think of, it's not Chazon Ish. No, not Chazon Ish. The only person I can think of is his Mechutin, Rabbi Yashiv, because Rabbi Yashiv is quoted saying pretty much the same as Rav Shlomo Zalman. I guess that's who he means, but he doesn't want to identify him because he didn't get permission to say so. The Bishleim al Mashkish al Koko, as you saw, now you now know what Mashkish al Koko is. Nicha. Mashavarchim SHEHAKOL. Mavur b'shar chuvas and reish beis siv cut and yud test. Freeze. Okay, if I can go to, there's going to be some fancy footwork here, Parkov. You're going to work very hard here. I'm paying you double today. Go to the Mishabura that you showed me before, but we got to come back to this. It's in this same package.
What?
That'll be
This package?
This is this package. We don't have to go off-site. Shar Tshuva, the line is Shechizek. No, not this one. One before.
No, not this one.
It's the Shar Tshuva page Reish Lamed Beis. Page Reish Lamed Beis. Maybe it's after the Mikra Shlomo. I put it after the Mikra Shlomo. Sorry.
Oh, you're right.
See, I put it there for a reason. Look on the top. He says, he's talking about coffee and tea. He's talking about the Panamiris. For some strange reason, I was like to give you shiurim on all the big liquids. So here right now, I have a liquid. How do I know I have a liquid? I was trying to figure out who the Divrei Yosef was, but it's a Kadmon, and I couldn't. And Rabbi Shapiro is not here today, so we'll have to ask him later. But the Divrei Yosef in Simin Yadal says SHEHAKOL. Pain Amadabar, and he sends you to somebody called Shemesh Tzedek. The Shar Tshuva. Shar Tshuva was not written 100 years ago; it was written 200 years ago. 200 years ago, yeah, probably. What was significant about that, Rabbi Say? What's significant about that? About this psak from the Divrei Yosef? What's significant about the fact that it's not significant, Yaakov? You said it before. Divrei Yosef is talking about the Aztecs. Just remember now. And Mir Tashem, Ben Azmanim, we'll do some Chazara. And you'll remember that Shlomo Gottesman told you to think Aztecs. Divrei Yosef, Aztecs. Divrei Yosef was talking about liquid, aka chocolate liquor. That is a SHEHAKOL. Why? You know why? Kol Mashke, steht in Tosfos, and Lameches Samad Aleph. Beer! You were looking at black beer. I got a total memory of Musiker. I was privileged to be at a Shalom Zacha for grandson. Anybody own Lakewood? Oh, my Lakewood album. Tomorrow there'll be a bris. Meretz Hashem in Beis David tomorrow morning. Of Ma'anico. Everybody's invited to Eliezer. You can still make it. Only a few hours to get to the airport. Anybody who can fly into Lakewood for the Simcha is cordially invited. It's happened before. Some of my chaverim actually surprised me by flying into Simchas. And the point is that they served beer at this Shalom Zachar. It's the first question. Maimer Muzker. We're going slightly off topic here because I mentioned beer. Why did they serve beer at Shalom Zachar? Anybody know?
Yeah.
What?
I serve beer.
Yeah, Arbus, we know why. Why beer? Why not wine? Arbus is a siman of bracha, a ribui. But why beer? Moshe knows. There was a takana of the Vad Arbe Harotzais to serve only beer at Shalom Zachars. Because nothing to change. They were getting drunk at Shalom Zachars. There was too much wine going around in the dookies of of Poland and Lithuania at the time. So they decided to crack down on it. It says the Bachram, younger light, will come to Shalom Zachars. And they were getting drunk in the wine, and it was too expensive. So nothing's changed. So they made it to Kana to serve beer. Okay, now they didn't realize that 200 years later, they would have to go zuchengreis 20 types of different beers. And I noticed that on the beers, my children are the firmest on kashrus or whatever is. I saw the beers don't have ksherim. 1 or 2 had, 1 or 2 didn't. Elam, for some reason, decided that beer doesn't need a hechsher. I wonder why. Because we went through the process of making beer with another video. Maybe it was Parkov who sponsored it. I don't remember of how beer is made. Seems to me it's a manufacturing process. No, it doesn't have to be kosher Pesach, but why doesn't it have to be
I once
kosher?
asked Matisyahu Salman in Russia about that question, and he said all beers are kosher.
What? All beers are kosher.
I'm sure all beers are kosher by definition on the ingredients, but why don't you need someone there to make sure the guy is not, or the manufacturer is not throwing something trade? Who knows, right? Flavoring, I don't know what. Why? Because it's not Mara Nafshayu, you mean? Because it's not Mara Nafshayu. SHEHAKOL says they're not fooling around with the purity of their thing. That's what you're saying? They could put an infinitesimal, they could put something which they think is infinitesimal. Adkan, what I want to spend time off topic. Says from the Zalman. So Rabbi say the point here is that the Rabbi Yosef Psak is not negaya to chocolate bars. The Rabbi Yosef Psak was on what you saw, the alcohol chocolate.
Not like beer. It's a drink, but beer only has the taste of the barley.
Says Yaakov, beer does, but Tyson says beer doesn't have the taste of it, only has tam. Has a tam, okay, you want to say it has a taste of barley, yeah?
Why in beer you say SHEHAKOL is because it only has the tam of the starting rate, but it doesn't have the act.
Doesn't apply here. You know who says this? You know who says this? Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Have a circle on Ari Mamish Eichel Gomer. To the next line. Okay, Rabbi Sai, very quickly. We need to see this inside. I am 20 minutes behind. Let's go. Reish Gimel Sif Daled, page. Okay, this is the introduction to Siman Reish Gimel, which is next week. What next week's limud in Reish Gimel Daled, Mechaber says. Page, everybody, move pages quickly.
Reish Gimel.
Siv Zayin, sorry. Siv Zayin. Okay, very important Siv Zayin. Besamim shechukim umoravim im sukkar. Rabbi say this is Rav Shlomo Zalman's taina. Why chocolate should be ha'etz. It should be similar to ginger and sugar. Vasi does ginger and sugar, says the Mechaber. Besamim shechukim umoravim im sukkar. Now this is a Hambasamim Iker Mavarcha and Kedim Berachas Eisa Besamim. So before we get to Iker and Tafel, which is not the sugya today, but the Mechaber tells you that the Besamim are Iker, even though what? Three. No, even though they are ground. So even though you saw with great detail on Unzera Chashuv video, roll this on, you really blew it. On the Chashuv video, you saw that those beans are ground, correct? It's part of the 12-step process. I mean, beer had 4 steps. Who knew that chocolate is so complicated? Who knew? But one of the main things is that it's ground. Nevertheless, says the Mechaber, ground ginger is a Bayer Priyadama. If ground ginger is a Bayer Priyadama, why isn't ground cocoa beans a Bayer Priya 8? That's the Taz. Okay, important Taz here on the left side. The Tur King Custom Shem Maram. Nearly. This is the Maram. My humlasa. Oh, we're back to humlasa. Haina Madrinik Mar humlasa Dasa Behunda. It comes from India. Some sort of a ginger. A Bayer Priyadama. Rashi Shem Besam Ketushim B'Dvash, even though it has honey filled with it. Zangvil, aka ginger, Merukach, Arkan Lashainai, the Tur B'Shem, Rabbeinu Maram, and Ilches Brachais. In Kain Kasha, my Chidusha de Maram. It's like you missed some video. My Chidusha de Maram. What's the Chiddush of the Maram? We had a video on chocolate making. Nearly Domusahim Futemes Bidvash Avol Eina Harba Kolkach. There's no riot to Homusa, because Homusa is Mefutim. Elishan Nivla Advash, some it's a little bit. Pshita some Iker. Maram is talking about Shesukar Ma'ar Beneim. They already had sugar here by Sai at the time of the Taz. Of course, they had sugar. They had sugar all the time, but they had two different types of sugar, as we learned when we discussed sugar. Who harba be'en lefanenu ke'ayin ken sheneg beinenu shem arvet sukar ingber katush. Yeshem sukar harba, it's very sweet. It's candy. Kamay ingber, there's as much sugar as there is ginger. Sait adaitel of our kamayalat sukar. I should make a shakol kishem sukar right feilachilu my ingber. You can eat sugar on its own, but you can't eat ingber on its own. Gosh, well, I don't know. What does ginger taste like? Anybody ever taste ginger? I don't know. Ginger ale tastes pretty good. Isn't ginger ale made out of ginger?
Yeah, without sugar, it's bitter.
It's bitter, like chocolate. Okay. A royal tefela chilim ingber kamash. One the felachem mikra tzukah tafel gabe ingber valach imber priadama. Akan devetas. Mishabura, page 253 says chukim in Zion. What does that you can't see Zion? Mishabura Zion, yeah. Shechukim. Hainu. Afkin shechukim nemuchel gabri. Acha a nikar behem tire rish and clara baisai. You saw that movie. Doesn't this discuss chocolate? The chocolate you eat chocolate bar looks nothing like the esrog you saw on the tree. Nevertheless, Beker Shem Zalman, araya from ginger. Ginger kale doesn't look like anything that it was there before. He means the Trumas Adeshin too, Rashi too. The Derech Habesamim Lichtoish Ba'ifan Zeh. Big problem, Rabbi say. Big problem. The video proved to you that it was Katush, true, but it proved to you that the Unzer Chashva white plantation guys, not only were they in their trees that died to the Hachi, they set up factories that died to the Hachi. So it's Katush Legamri. Why should it be different than Siman, Reish, Gimel, Sif, Zion? Why does this not control the bracha? Zak the Elik of Shlomo Zalman on page, back to the Shlomo Zalman. And then he sends you to a Magnav and Reish Beis, which we'll read from the Michashleim because we're running out of time. The Magnav says, I Magnav Shakasav the Kivin Shaderchu Lichtoish Velischek. Aram Chashuvim Kekayim Losayu Tzvi says Ishtana Lamilse. Rabbeinu Harav Gombiner, sorry, argues with you. That was the Magnav last name, Rabbi Abba Gombiner. And the Magnav says that ginger is not Mishtam, is Mimosayu Kaima. Im Kain, Zakter, Mikashleima, Hare, Gam Kauko, the Derech Lichlassen, Rapper, which is a Risuk. There's a work, Alzeb, Bayre, Pri, Eitz, Mekako, Iker, which it is. A Koshkain, Kishahu, Raif, which it is. Vapli, Beyaser. But if you're an Ashkenazi, I don't know, we don't have Chaviv, where's Chaviv today? If Chaviv is here, I was Sephardi from Egypt, then I can always have a much greater diversity, but he's not here. So all us, the please even bigger on the Svardim, Shneigen Kamachaber, like the Machaber, Levarch by Pre-Eitz, Gamal Transh's Mike, which is interesting because they follow the Heilige Maron HaRambam. V'chashafti Leimer. Okay, so now we got a problem. So would you say that if you stopped here, what would you say? You'd say Shlomo Zalman is clearly telling you to make a Bayer Pre-Eitz. The problem is, Shlomo Zalman wrote in the first line that it is Noeg Ha'alma to make a shakol. She tries to give an eitzah here. Let's skip down to the end of the paragraph so I can finish this part of the shir with the shaila. Chadayin temua sharim avorsha gam ala ingbar shechukim. It's very important. Both Rabbi Bernstein and Gottesman, listen carefully because you have to know this problem. The problem is, says from Zalman, an ingbar, the chukim, sha'eichlim in zucker. Ingbar is ginger, they eat with sugar. Mevarchim by priyates. Kamaisha v'kasavataza, we just finished. V'cheinu v'mishabura, in Reish Beis, Sifkat Mem Daled. That we looked at extensively last week, and I'm assuming you remember. Frekt of some Zalman, I'll say chocolate, cocoa, liquor, salad is not eaten k'maishu chai. Neither is the ingber, because Rabbi Parkov tasted raw cinnamon, and he knows that raw cinnamon is bitter. So you don't eat raw cinnamon. Frekt of Shlomo Zalman, nevertheless, the marab, brought in the Torah, the sikum of the Shittas of the Balataisits, which would be L'chairali, but the Rashi holds, and that's the problem that Trumas Hadeshin raises. But according to everybody, Im Gabar Shochuk is a Bayrei Priya Eitz. That gripping video that the Eilam was zeicha to see, thanks to Rabbi Parkov, which showed the 12 steps of making chocolate. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. Ingber is exactly analytically, halachically the same as chocolate. L'chein sarach in Rabbi say. What's the bottom line here? If I stopped here, of course, I'm doing a little unfair editing here. But if you stopped here and if you read this tshuva, would it be fair to say that Shlomo Zalman holds that chocolate is an eitz? I think it would be fair to say that. He doesn't say Asher al Kain ani mevarech or Asher al Kain minig olam toisu. Doesn't say that. He acknowledges that the olam makes a SHEHAKOL. However, if Shlomo Zalman lies by a tzarech, I would venture to say I don't know this. I wish we could find this out because his children and the close Talmidim, closest Talmud probably is who. Well, Gesundsein knew who's his closest Talmud currently alive today. Anybody know who?
Never saw.
Chashaviyid, the Rav of the old city. Hagoyin Rav Simcha ben Medinsky and I went to visit him. Courtesy, Rav Medinsky brought me along. Last time while you were in Etzral in February, and we had a chat with him. Chashaviyid, of course, by this point is Zaken. He learned from Shlomo Zalman every single day with Chavrusa. I guess maybe his Yerush would be Shmuel's Zechar L'Racha, but he's not around to ask. But Ramardcha Yibad L'Chaim is. We should ask if Shlomo Zalman ate chocolate. I'll bet you he didn't. Bet you he didn't. She'll say, "Wow, why didn't he just make an eitz?" So what's the answer to that? Parkov? What's the answer to that? Rabbi say couldn't make an eitz. Why? Because he had to be chayshish to the shita of the Ramah. Couldn't make a shako because he had to be chayshish to the shita of the Mincha Shlomo, aka the Mechaber, aka the Maram, aka the Trumas Hadeshin, that even if it's totally cut up, as long as something is added to it, you make a priyates. So what do we do here? I'll bet you he never ate chocolate. Just like, anybody know what the template for that is? Who never ate something else? Anybody know? Rabbeinu Achsam Seifer, from the age of 6. Once he was explained, and Rabbeinu Achsam Seifer at the age of 6 is us like at the age of 36.
Start eating rice.
He never ate rice, maybe, yes, but he never ate sugar.
No sugar.
Because sugar was a parallel machlekes to chocolate. Sugar preceded chocolate, because the machlekes over sugar is between the Rambam and the Bahag, and a no psak, clear psak. We pass in the minig olam, again, it's a minig olam. So Sefer said, Mustafa Charainda and machlekes and a shayla v'savik bracha levatala. Me, I'm Del Daita, he never ate sugar. I would bet without knowing, can't know this. I'm making a wild hashara. Rav Zalman never ate chocolate because he was stuck here. So you'll say, why didn't he bring a pre? I'm waiting for the second one to come on. It's coming on slowly. Why didn't he bring a pre to pater the chocolates? Anybody know the answer to that? The answer to that, Rabbi Say, is that raises all sorts of other questions. Besides the issue of if you can make a bracha ha'etz when maybe the Ramah tells you it's a shehakol, if you made a eitz, which Shlomo Zalman himself paskined, and he discusses, that's why I think for sure that nun vav nun in the beginning of the tshuva, which Shlomo Zalman says, I discussed the Gedali Adar, is it the Mechut and Rabbi Yashav? I don't know how they did it. Did they talk to each other on the phone, or he picks up one with a taxi to Rechov Hanan 10, or the reverse, weiß ich nicht. But I'm kamat zicher that it's Rabbi Yashav, because our friend young Rabbi Mendelbaum, who when he was a young man and wrote this very chashuv sefer on Ilchos Brachos, and it was based on the psakim of Rabbi Yashav, who he called Gadol Echad, because you don't want to identify him by name, but everybody knows who he was. But it was real simchas. Daniel says the Chatanim got together at the bar mitzvahs of Israel's sons. Okay, true. Maybe they got together in public places. If they didn't waste any time, I'm sure they talked immediately into learning, since they both knew Dalachak Shulchan Aruch literally by heart. So you can imagine where their discussion started. They didn't start off the Mechutin the sugi from chocolate. Went straight down to this problem in the Trum Sedeshen, and this problem in the Divrei David, etc., etc. So Yashav also holds that if you made a eitz, your eitz only b'di'eved. So now we're stuck, because if you only eitz b'di'eved, why do you want to put yourself in the b'di'eved? That's problem number one. Problem number two, there's major sequence issues here of what you do if you have both a Bayer-Priya eitz, and you have, such as a root, as you heard last week, quickly, and you have applesauce. What do you do? Right, Rabbi Say, you're creating major sequence issues. Why? Because if you make the eitz and you think you're going to pater the applesauce with it, maybe the applesauce is an eitz, according to the Rambam, because it's dvash tomorrow, my paste is an eitz, as much as you ground it. Yes, apples, no apples, according to the Rambam, it is an eitz. Yes, pieces, no pieces, irrelevant. It's an eitz, because that paste is an eitz, and applesauce is a paste. So maybe according to the Mechaber, the Rambam Paskin is like the Mechaber, it's an eitz. So how can maybe according to the Rambam, it's a SHEHAKOL, and the eitz doesn't pattern the SHEHAKOL. So you got a problem. I'll make the SHEHAKOL first, but maybe that bracha really is an eitz, and there's a reverse sequence problem. So Rabbi Say, I'm betting from the Zalman never ate chocolate.
What are you going to make a shackle on?
I don't know, something else. Not enough things to make a shackle on. You go to
Can't use sugar. It's got the same shiloh.
I agree, and that's why the Chum never ate sugar. But I don't know if that is what happened. But I'm just telling you, I don't know about sugar, because I'm not staring at a tshuva where Shlomo Zalman says sugar is a problem. But I'm staring at a tshuva where Shlomo Zalman says chocolate is a problem. So now Rabbi Say, I edited out 1 or 2 lines from the Shlomo Zalman. For those of you just coming on now, here's the problem. The problem is the Friedika were entertained by a wonderful video that shows the chocolate making process. It showed how the chocolates come off the tree directly in things that look like melons or big esrogim, and they undergo a large amount of processing, important halacha, to end up in a chocolate bar. In between, literally, it changes from a estrog-like melon, which is split open, and the beans are taken away from their white cover. Yes, believe it or not, chocolate starts off white, and then they undergo 6 or 7 steps. Dylan can remind me, and they're made from they're ground. They're made into a liquid. They're reheated. A huge amount of processing. Seder Shem Zalman, all very nice, but it doesn't change the fact that ginger and dvash is a Bayer Pri Adama. Says from Zalman, why should this not be a Bayer Pri Ha'etz? We saw it come off a tree. He discussed this at Rabbi Zriel's Chasana with his Mechutin Rabbi Yashiv, and the way it's quoted in some of the brachos svarim is that Rabbi Yashiv agreed with him that Be'ikar Hadin chocolate is a Bayer Pri Ha'etz. Every single person in this room, every single person on the Zoom makes a SHEHAKOL on chocolate. And the question is why? A big problem, Rabbi say. And all your terutzim don't work because, says from the Zalman, it's al zeir shein. Abichava simin in Shulchan Aruch, a maharam, codified in Shulchan Aruch, less man the palig, on Shulchan Aruch, Eirachayim, Simon Reichkim, we'll put it back on for the home this came on. Siv Zayin, where the Mechaber, no Ramonis, backed up by Rabbeinu Ataz, says Besamim, which is ginger in this case, Shechukim, Muravim, and Sukkar, is a Bayrei Peri Adama. Fact of Shlomo Zalman, fact of Yashiv, fact Nasach. If that's the case, sugar, no matter how many times it was processed, no matter how many different it looks, should be a Bayrei Peri. It's Adkan the problem, and now let's offer up some solutions. I'm sorry that some of you did not get to see this video because you really do understand it better, like all Hilchos Brachos in the Metzias. So the first problem we have is we have to distinguish the Shari Tshuva, brought here in Reish Lamed Beis, which we can distinguish relatively easily. It's after the Shem Zalman right there. The Shari Tshuva brings a Divrei Yosef. I wish I had my bibliographical guys around who can tell us who the Divrei Yosef is, but it must have been a Kadmon, because if it's in the Shari Tshuva, obviously it's early. And he says you make a SHEHAKOL, but as we said earlier, this does not control our question, because the fact that the Divrei David is talking about the Aztecs, Rabbi Yosef, Divrei Yosef, sorry, Best Egras 60. Ooh, really a Kadmon. 1685, right after the Magen Ram and the Taz. 1730, way before the Goyin and Rekiveger, way before Mamsha Kadmon. So he was his psak should control everything. The problem is, as you saw in the manufacturing process, the chocolate that he is talking about is the liquid, which is called, don't ask why, alcohol. It's called liquor, called chocolate liquor. And that was a very chashuva Michael in South America. It became a very chashuva Michael. It was Eila Shulchan Malachim. The Bishul Akim would apply here because it was a rich man's drink. Who can afford this? But it was liquid. So there, the psak of the Yad Yosef did not see it inside, mea culpa, but the psak of the Yad Yosef Divrei Yosef makes sense because it's referring to something which clearly is only drunk as a mashke. Something which is clearly drunk as a mashke is a SHEHAKOL. How do we know that, Rabbi Sai? Give me one word answer. No? The chopper, one word. What's the word that controls here? Beer, sheikhar. Anything that is liquefied, no matter where it comes from. Even if it comes from Mine Dagon, which is the most powerful controller of all, is still a SHEHAKOL. Why? Because once it becomes a beerish liquid, it's a SHEHAKOL. Good. So you'll say, what's the problem? The answer is the Divrei Yosef only was talking about the SHEHAKOL because Cadbury had not yet invented the process that you saw in that video, which takes the liquid and turns it into the chocolate bars that we have. So now, Hadar Dina, it's not being eaten as a chocolate. It's being eaten as a salad. And from Zalman doesn't even go into this. He names on Pashut that since it's being eaten, it's no longer a mashke. It should be revert back to Bar Priyates. I was a mashke in between. What do you say to that, Rabbi say?
Anything else like that?
What?
Is there any other product that's like?
You ask me if anybody says that? Yes.
Any other, I think, is there?
Oh, so my entire brilliant Chavrusa asked me a shaila. Is there any other Michael like this? Which means you took a salad, the movie. You don't watch movies, I know. You took a salad, you turned it, you ground it, but you did 12 steps. I don't know how many steps there were, a lot of steps. And then it ended up in the middle as being a liquid. And then you turn it into salad. The only thing that I can think of, which is somewhat similar, where you have a lot of transformations in the chemistry class, is what? Everybody say, I'm giving it away. Schnapps, right? Schnapps comes from a solid. What happens to, wait. How do you make schnapps? We spend a lot of time in schnapps, I think, at one point. Maybe before we tell the kids about. So schnapps, I don't have time for this, but schnapps basically becomes a gas. You wear this? Are you aware the schnapps becomes a gas? You wear this? And it becomes a gas, yeah. Then it becomes, they freeze it, unfreeze it, and it becomes a liquid.
To make a shackle.
You make a shot. Why don't you make a grain? Why don't you make a dama on shackle? So you'll say because in the middle it became a gas. So you see in the middle it now ends up in the shackles. Liquid, the processing wasn't drunk. Who says? Unschuldigt. It was drunk. It's not drunk now, but in the time of the Aztecs, you probably were not here during the history lesson. In the time of the Aztecs, it was not only was it drunk, it was a kingly drink. Wikipedia, and it was even arguably we tried to emphasize this point. It could have been used for, it could have been used for Kirshuf Dollars Kumar Medina. So Rabbi say, this is the problem. What's the solution? Solutions.
Bishalakim also problem.
Bishalakim, okay. Who possibly did it to SHEHAKOL? So I'll give you an example. Famous tshuva from Rabbi. Rabbi is talking about a chocolate-covered tape recorder. I kid you not. He says, "With tape recorder, with for some reason unknowns to us, I guess because Rabbi Greenblatt asked him this question at the same time back in 1972 about a tape recorder and about chocolate-covered raisins. This was a big problem in 1972. Chocolate-covered raisins. Apparently, it's not corrected. That's what we're here for. You're here to learn. You'd make a mistake. We're in the process of learning. If I could have grabbed you away at 11 o'clock, you would have seen the movie. You wouldn't have asked the question. But I shouldn't say movie, the video. This is a tshuva on Iker v'Tafel Rabbi Sai, which we are Meretz Hashem. I kept on saying this now for a year. We're gonna we're gonna learn this Iker and Tafel before we close, no matter what happens. Mashiach comes, he'll still let us learn Iker v'Tafel. We'll learn together with him. This is the Shaila Iker v'Tafel, chocolate covered raisins. What's the Iker and what's the Tafel? This Shaila Negeya, Linyane, Lemaisa, all the time. Whenever you cheat and go and eat this junk at a Shom Zachar or wherever, Negeya all the time. And Ramesha goes to Reshit Beis Yif Beis. It's Iker and Tafel Shaila. And he quotes a Magen of Ram, and he goes into issues which are a little bit side to us. But B'Teichat Dvarim, Rav Moshe Nemzon, and he goes back and forth in the Tzimukim, one bracha, two bracha, and Rav Moshe's psak, famous psak is, and this takes away all the geschmack of eating these chocolate covered raisins. You got to make two brachas, okay? Two brachas on chocolate covered raisin. So then Moshe gives the sequence problem that I mentioned earlier. The Kivin, no, Chas v'Shalom Hershey. The more you learn, the clearer it becomes. Shemachupin, any yachol barach tchil al tzmukin. How do you make the bracha in the smukim? It's covered. You got to make a kavana, kishavarach shakol, chocolate, shaloy bayat smukim, and Ramesh knows that hepach kavanas when it comes to these things are impossible. And then he has smukim that's not mechupa, or another eitz yivarachat smukim techila. Make a bracha. In order to eat this chocolate covered raisins, you have to go hunt down another eitz, and you make a shah. Rabbi say, and we all know that this is a humongously shah. What's the point of this true for us? The point is true is Ramesh nemdam pashat, nishra shamdaman and nishra yashiv, that the bracha on chocolate is a SHEHAKOL. Question is why. So let's offer 3 mahalchim in the limited time we have left to try to explain why it possibly should be SHEHAKOL. First one, mahalch I will take from Rabbi Abba Shaul. Rabbi Abba Shaul, the reason I'm taking him first, because I maybe have 5 mahalchim, try to cram in 5 tshuvas here in the next 40 minutes. Rabbi Abba Shaul focuses on the beginning of the process. At the beginning of the video, right? Parkov, there's always 3 steps ahead of me, for sure. I don't know about you. Pointed out in the picture of the video we saw that there were trees there. And he said to him, to me, looks like these trees are random trees. To which I smiled at and said, yeah, it could be the random trees because the cocoa tree, maybe it's not like an esrog tree, you don't have to do much to it. But by the definition, since we know in the history part there were plantations, so now l'chayra, these are big businesses, and we know that Nestle's is a multi-billion, trillion-dollar business. So what's this thing to everybody say? This is a very important principle in Ilchis Brachos called Adaita Dahachi Nati. Adaita Dahachi Nati. Why was this tree planted? If this tree was planted Adaita Dahachi, it a big kaveyam by eitz. Why were these chocolate trees painted? So look at what he says. Yeshli stapek biberchas hachokolad. No, he passed the chocolate baruch shakol nimavari. Good, that's the psak. And the shaila is now why? Yeshli stap baruch l'shagad. And then gadol echad ratzav laimar shemavarcham ala bay eitz. Who this gadol echad is mistamitz of Shlomo Zalman, but simultaneously a young Rav in England. I know him. I met him several times. I think maybe in Israel, but primarily in Manchester. His name is Gavrila Kraus. He used to be the Av Bezin in Manchester, well after Diane Weiss. He was younger, our age, a big goyin, very chashuvid. Now there's Shiva there. And he wrote a sefer called, I forgot what, bracha, and Makara bracha. And he was marish to ganze Welt that it should be an eitz like Shlomo Zalman. This is not him. I don't think he's referring to him. I think he's referring to Shlomo Zalman. It's in Michal Shleimer, Chelik Aleph. He was still alive, and he maybe discussed it with him. Given sha'asu mipulei kaka'a bam and eitz. Va'af shem shchukim. Now you know what he's talking about because you saw the Mechaber, which says ginger shachuk is a adama. Dami l'reish gimel siv zayin. And you all know what reish gimel siv zayin is. What's reish gimel siv zayin?
Ginger.
Ginger, right? Rabbi say. Same time as Rav Zalman. And it brings the Magen of Ram, Hashem and Sedeshen. Sha'af, Shehem, Ketushim. Smashed. Chocolate is made out of smashed. Given Shein Derech Lichtoish, the Lischik, as Subsamim. Kaimi Rimilsayu. So we don't have to use Svara. That's a Shtani. Absolutely not. Kodim Mikako, Shaderech Leseichkoi, Sarach, Lavarach, Beirei, Pri, Eitz.
And Lamal Yusuf.
Ulam Nira. So now he's looking for an Eitzah. So he comes up with a Svara. I'm going to call this Svara Leheter number 1. It's the one that's a little strangest to us and needs a little bit of a background. In Simon Reish Gimel, which you are going to be learning this week, Sif Dalid, the Mechaber Paskins, and I think we should have to look at this. It's on page 250. The Mechaber says, Al Peiros Shemaitim. We're going to be learning this simon this week. Reish Gimel. So everybody get used to this symbol. Simin. Page 250. Al Peiros Shemaitim Ilane Srak SHEHAKOL. What's the site for this? So the Bergoyla brings a Shabali Leket B'Shem Tshuva Sagoyim. What is the bracha on if somehow an Ilan Srak, a barren tree I have in my backyard, it's just leaves.
Oak tree.
Millions of one Srak. Somehow you got to pay in this. What's the bracha? It is a SHEHAKOL. Umar and Kasser Chanarach Samesh Gimel Dalit. So perish and Mitzil and Shak Varach SHEHAKOL only a bidvarai. So what does it have to do with this, Rabbi say? What do you do with chocolate? The Magram Bataz, which we haven't seen yet. You make a buyer pre-8. So we're back to where we started. Now listen to this, Rabbi say. I want to show you. I did not plan it this way. Absolutely not. But I'm going to show you an incredible thing. We spent 2 Sundays, I thought, for those of you who missed it, it's really worth looking at the tape, with 2 amazing shiurim from B'Malchus Usher on the Inyan of Halacha in Kabbalah in Halacha. And it was, of course, there were 2 major figures in this that we can't even be masig as regular people who we're dealing with. And one was Shin Ben Ichai and one was Rizal. Based state that the Rizal was a Nitzav Shin Ben Ichai, I assume. Based. But this stuff is above our pay grade. So look what he says. That if the peri is royal achila, even if from an ilan srak. Another example. I don't know. Rabbi Weiss was only going on to the 36 places of we quote the Zohar, but here's another example of machlekes between Maran and the Arizal. Because the Mechaber said it's a SHEHAKOL, and the Rizal is a Paisik. Yes, he is. The Rizal paskined that such a case it is a buyer pre-8. Rabbi said we're back to our problem. I don't know what a sabras is.
Sabra. That's
What is that?
the cactus plant, the cactus fruit. Sabra.
You telling me sabras is a sabra?
Sabras.
That's the Yiddish Zach? That's what
Sabras.
you're telling me? Really? Everybody agree with that?
Yep.
Now you are going up against your Rizal. So HBachos is making it worse. Mikal Makem Nira. The Afsh Bashara Mitzvah Shlomo Chilik Be'ezeh Pri. He's not talking about which Pri. Nira, here comes the Sfar number 1 to make chocolate into SHEHAKOL. And Udaf compares to Ram Lachil Kamay Shehem to my Sabras or Gedaima. Somebody, I don't remember one of my Choshev Begoynish and Chavusis said, but it's not Roy Lachila in the alcohol state, in the liquor state, which is that liquid that you saw. It's not Roy Lachila, which I took exception. The Aztecs drank it. No. He says a svara. You need, and this svara is the basis for all the terim and chocolate. It's just there's 3 different ways of expressing it. This is number 1. A paris sarch v'takdam la'achila. 12 steps as you saw. There's hadar dina tomorrow that it is a SHEHAKOL.
Ginger's not royal achil either. As is.
Basic nicht.
But you don't really change the ginger. You just grind it, but it's still there. Here you did major changes.
I don't know. I think it's still there, my tire friend. I don't know. To me, a chocolate bar is the same as a ginger bread or whatever that is, ginger thing. You telling me the ginger is still there? Ich sag euch that I feel more cacao in a chocolate bar, in a bittersweet chocolate bar. Now maybe you'll tell me all those steps took a totally change, which is what they're telling you. And somehow the bitterness is not from the original chocolate. You want to tie to that? I don't think so. To me, it's the same thing. The Paiskim, and in the next 20 minutes, you're going to see the Paiskim are struggling for this because from Zalman and Rav Yashar's kasha is a too good a kasha. It should be an 8, and they maybe could get out of it if they didn't have that ginger mechaber, which tells you it's an adama. So this is an 8. You can see the Erletzion is squirming here, and he says it needs a tikkun. Okay, there you go. Now he goes into the junk, what I'm calling the junk additive heter. You saw all this on that video. The nice not sure. It becomes, I guess it means totally clear. Not clear, it becomes viscous. He goes, he had a different video than we did. He starts off with one thing, being daimel ilan strak, and ilan strak is a SHEHAKOL. That's the problem. So he's daimel ilan strak, comes in with their Rizal, tells you no, then we're fighting with their Rizal.
It's oxymoron. Srock is no payers.
No, that's stuff which comes out in a structure. Sometimes pairs come
He
out.
defines it that it grew by itself, not that it has no payers.
Right.
That's his definition here.
Yes. He tells you in the next paragraph. Oh, now we ask the problem here. Maybe you'll say it wasn't not to die to the hachi. It's a different problem. So therefore, it's weiter an 8. Somebody said this for, I don't remember who, in the course of, maybe it was Rabbi Deutsch. This is a very important svar in this sugya by Saya. It's a tree which was always a strak, and the human technology advancement turned it into something else. I don't know. Till we found the Aztecs, we didn't even know that cocoa tree existed. So who says, and according to Wikipedia, the cocoa was around for thousands of years. So blueberry bushes?
That's the crop that they cultivated. That's the difference.
And then Rabbi Sion again squirms again. Yes, Laden Bazeh. When the suffix it's on new, the Meli make a SHEHAKOL. All the way at the end of the last 2 lines, it says the reason you make a shot because you don't know when you make a shot. Ad kan divrei Rabbi Tzina B'Shul. Across the road, 50 to 60 miles away, in Bnei Brak, the Chut Hashani says the same thing in one line. I have it on the back of my page here, but I don't know what to after. Here you go, the bottom of the right side. Takolad b'chaser SHEHAKOL, ma'achas she'avar yibudim v'shinuyim rabim. Vadai de'ena pri nikar boy. Why? Mechaber says otherwise. V'loi damili pri shedarkoi berisuk, kimin she'avar yibudim rabim v'shinuyim. So here you have the whole shtickle paragraph from Simba Shaul summarized in one line.
So it depends
tell
how
you, Rabbi,
complicated the manufacturing process.
Going back to the tree business, I'm going back to the tree process. I'm going to tell you a shocking thing, which we know from Rabbeinu Rav Moshe.
Wine doesn't look like grapes either.
Courtesy of Shmuel first, doesn't matter. Courtesy of Shmuel first. Shmuel first was asked to the Talmud Rav Moshe, what Rav Moshe held about chocolate. And believe it or not, don't fall off your chair. He said Rav Moshe held chocolate as an 8, mikor and din. However, really should make an 8 or a dama. Why? Given the natai adaitai dihachi, there's no way to taina that chocolate plantations were not nita adaitai dihacha. Rav Moshe has another svara. It should be an 8. Says Rav Moshe, the reason why he turned it into SHEHAKOL, Haka was mitama suffix. But what was the suffix? There are some who, don't ask me what this means, who are neteya l'shem tavlonim. You're going to tear these cocoa trees, l'shem tavlonim, and therefore, by definition, it's a suffix why this tree was created. Rabbi say, I don't understand this. I don't have the original, and I didn't get a chance to call Rabbi first, which I would like to do. But what does that mean? That means then you have to be mevarer where it was, where it wasn't. Okay, we already found that in Hilchos Brachos you can't be mevarer everything, and we go after chazaka. But what does it mean that it was planted for tavlanim and therefore
That old chocolate is made into chocolate bars. They use chocolate flavoring for other foods. Maybe that's what he means. That's a tavlin.
Could be. I agree with that. Okay,
Chocolate
so
pudding.
now, Rabbi Sai, we're processing, no pun intended, the heter. So we have the Tzion that starts off making problems worse. He tries to say that it is Reish Gimel Ilon Srak. Then he says Erizal even the reason Slak is Bayer creates. So where we back to where we started, and then he has to come on to the numerous steps which take it out of this, and therefore at the end of the day, so we don't know. So it's a SHEHAKOL. The Chut HaShani says clearly it's a SHEHAKOL because there are numerous steps taken to it. Rabbi Shesterbach, Zol Gesund sein, Lahad L'chaim L'chaim. The As Nidbaru, okay, let's go look at As Nidbaru, it's only one paragraph. See if you can find that, and then we'll go to Rabbi Shesterbach. This is from Nasha Cotton, which I want to show to you to end, because it's an incredible Varte. Yeah, chocolate, just one paragraph. SHEHAKOL. What if you eat it raw? Probably maybe kafachayim days bezeh maskvar SHEHAKOL with koshkem and chocolate and the stan lemetzias acheres with tarubas oid minu lefi lepirusha einadayim leperis mersakin. Umistavra that fil yesh chaticha is button vikarim and tfeim lashaklad. Okay, that goes into whether there's nuts and the chocolate and everything is a SHEHAKOL, and this is referring to Ramesh's covered raisins. No shocking, not shocking. Ramesh Shtermach has a kiddush. So let's see what his kiddush is. He quotes Rabbi Kraus, Me Anglia, who says it's a 8. What do we do? Now, interesting, I say. Maybe this is not for Shiva Chaim Berlin. Often you'll see when they cite this Pachad Yitzchak, often you'll see a parenthesis afterward. Anybody know what that parenthesis is? I'm trying to follow my Rabbi Weiss here and give you the bibliographical material. Right, Bernstein, you know what that next parenthesis is? It says Lamparinti. There was a Chashuv Rav, his name was Lamparinti. I guess he was Italian. Yeah, who wrote a sefer called Yad Malachi. It was an encyclopedia. Later, the Eretz Yisrael was similar, and then later, of course, our encyclopedias. Anyway, there he quote like the Stechamed. He quotes the Yad Malachi, came from the Grace of Paiskim. He said, "This is an 8. Here you go. Rak, the Sefer now maskim. You make a SHEHAKOL kivin shamini came. Everybody said we got a problem here because it should be an 8, but everybody says, what can I do about the thing? So now he wrote this Shaila in Johannesburg, and in Johannesburg they wanted to make kosher chocolate, so they came to the Rav. He was Rabbi Shtermach, spent his young years in Johannesburg. He did incredible work there with Kiruv. It was interesting, and that's when he became, he was a Shtermach from the Haim, and he underwent successfully several metamorphoses. In Johannesburg, he was the Goyen's consul. He was like the shliach of the Goyen in the world. He turned because Johannesburg is, anybody know what the Kehillah, the makeup of the Kehillah in Johannesburg is primarily? Anybody know?
Primarily Hasidish.
Ex-Litvische Yidden. There are no Hasidim in Johannesburg. A big emigration of Litvische Yidden came there in the early 1900s, I think, late 1800s. A lot of them unfortunately became non-frum because they didn't have a Rebbe to keep them, as happened throughout Lita. But a lot of them stayed frum, and Rav Shtermach seamlessly became the head of that Kehillah, did an incredible job of Kiruv, etc. And he came back to Israel, and now he's the head of the Eidei Chareidis. No, how many people have the talent to do that? So he also is of the Goyen through the Pinis Mishpacha. I'll call upon him. He says, what do we do about this? It's an 8. The Sefer now, he says, what can we do? Here we wanted to make a hechsher, and we were mavar how they do it. So he says, Vitzuras priya kakao. Here's heter 2a, 1a. Mishtanis legalme de taruvish nice and tam achashav loy bottle. The ikar is the stuff that goes into the chocolate. You saw the picture. Stuff is put in there, but I don't know if that's the ikar. Chocolate afim ruban priates. Most of it is cacao. Chocolate chashav yisra taruvais shemi matim umeshana tzurvatam. Anusvara. He takes this out of the ikar and tuffle because the ikar is cocoa. So why shouldn't it be an eighth? Comes with a nusvara, with all the other flavorings and all the other stuff they put in. I don't know what stuff did they put into it. We didn't see so much stuff put into it, but so much stuff is put into it, it changes the whole thing, and therefore you make a shaka the lean bus of tam b'tzura nusvara. That he would agree is an eighth. He says cacao is only. So what I didn't show you in that Mechashleima is if you scroll back to the Mechashleima. Now let's see the two lines which we left out in the beginning. Markov, go to work here. Come back to Rabbi Sternbuch in a second. So Shlomo Zalman is stuck. I need a heter. Rashafti Leimar. The Kivin Chekakao Atzmai Einachal Kmal Kamaishahu. Nobody eats raw cocoa beans. V'aymin Karagal is Arab Dermachem V'ayfin Shurak Miut. Shlomo Zalman said it's a miut. Rabbi Sternbuch knows that this is a problem because he agrees that if you call up Nestle and you ask them, they're going to deny it's a miut. In fact, I didn't know this. I discovered this in Shabbos. You take out a chocolate bar. I asked my daughter for a chocolate bar. She has a little kid, so she has chocolate bars. Chocolate bar. Do you know on every chocolate bar, I don't know whether it's an FDA regulation or not, it says the percentage of chocolate. Did you know that, guys? Did you know that? If Letteraf was around, he'd immediately flash a whole bunch of chocolate bars on the screen. But that's what it says. I don't know if they're required to, but there it says 70% chocolate. There goes the svara, everybody say. 70% higher.
70% chocolate salads is inordinately rich. Most of them are not at that level.
You hear what he said? I didn't.
85.
You can get an 85% chocolate. So is this not like Rosh Hashanah, right? And Rosh Sternbuch knew this. He says, even though it's rive, it's not tzirasim. Let's finish here quickly. So Shlomo Zalman says, "L'chein efsham chayv nein she'ein miyit achal kivin she'ein roy l'chilai they tikkun v'taruvis and dvar macherim efsham de'ein zeh kol kach chashuv v'ach sh'derech lechlasha tamei risuk, which is ginger, and that still retains the eights. Dama eights. Afalachim v'varchim mozeh shehakol." Shlomo Zalman clearly, and he goes into a nigger in a little bit as a raya, and he clearly is not thrilled with this svara. But I asked you a question: what did Shlomo Zalman paskin? What's the discussion there? Louder. So now look to. I quoted
he just
here.
said chashavti. Chashavti is mashma havamina.
Okay, 1 second. Let me finish here quickly because we're behind schedule here. So if you go to the same bracha, which we took off there, it's a chachma. At the bottom here, just to show you why the Welt has two different things from Shlomo Zalman. The Chen al Shokolad. Here you go, in the bottom, only in the bottom of that. Here you go. That everybody knows is Rabbi Yashiv. Levarch Shakal mitamanal. What's the tamanal? The demon here is to sugar. Sugar was another world-class fight. Asukum Levarch SHEHAKOL. Why? In the previous paragraphs. Mishtana hasukul etzura acheres kanal. Okay. And then he says, in the parentheses, he says a very important sequence problem, Rabbi say. You can't make the eights first. You have to make the SHEHAKOL first. Because if you make the eights first, maybe you putter. V'chein al shokolad, hayiru mi paiskas manel v'rach shakom mitamanal. Igros Moshe, quotes from there. Oh! Make this bigger, please. I'm going to Blazer if you can. Hiksha. And this is where it comes from, Rabbi Say. When I said to my son-in-law Shem Zalman held us an eighth, he said, absolutely not. And he's right. Well, not in the Mechushlaima. So it must have been to him. He told him that you make a shako. He does not write that in the Mechushlaima. Mechushlaima is much more tentative, Rabbi say. But here is solid. Who's that? Goyashev. Pivin Shema'arvin Shokolad Minamacharim was a Rabbi said Shtickle Stira. Rabbi Lundinsky brings them both as eights. But then he says, okay, but that was the Minas Svara. They have a problem. But the Minig Olam, it's very hard to overcome Minig Olam. And then we have two people backing them up. One is the Shevet Levi. I want to read the last line because it's very important. For the reason of sequence problems. Okay, Rabbi Sai, let's go finish now to the rest of the Prangala Torah. Let's go back to Rav Sternbach because I need to show you before we finish, I need to show you this beautiful Shiloh from the Tshuva of the Ingvar law of Menashe Klein. Let's go back to this. So the Tshuvas and Haggais, the paragraph case you bring the Shem Zalman. So Shem Zalman has a problem with the Ingvar. It's only Nechal Shriku Messiah, Mitzarchi and Gadol. Make that yellow, please. Messiah, Mitzarchi and Gadol.
Where are you reading?
Right there. You were right there. 2 lines down, 3 lines down. You just quoted from Zalman. I'm not doing it again. I'll call upon him. Aysan Shema Arvin Kako. Keep on down, further down. Imsuki Yachad. Vaichlan. Now Rabbi say, if you go downstairs sometimes, other kailim, what will you find? Yitzchak, what will you find? A can of cocoa, raw cocoa. What's the bracha on raw cocoa? No. And then you took the cocoa. Well, let's see, but you ate it. You went like this, you ate it. What's the bracha? Should be an eighth. Once you put it into the water, it turns into a shako, maybe, because now it's beer. Everybody knows what I mean by now it's beer. Well, look what he says. Am I right who cuts Richin vital of Akbarates? Elam does not know this. And this is mamish ginger. Chocolate. Lamashin is by Ikra Rakat Tavon Nosatam. Very aggressive svara here, everybody say. Betam Atavon Ikar, very aggressive svara. Nestle's and Chadbury and all these guys would argue with this vociferously. They'll tell you they have pure chocolate. And they're going to tell you that it's 7, how much you said? 85%? No, milk is different. We'll get to milk. Okay, everybody say. Another svara. Is there a second page to this truth with others? I think there is. No. Okay. Rav Vosno would ask the Shilas. So first of all, Ididi. I got into Sally asked me, what about milk chocolate? So we'll try to get to the milk chocolate in a moment. But let's first see what Rav Vosno says. I just want to show you the 2 final tshuvas that we need to get to. And then I'll show you Rav Vosner. I'm going to tell you what I found, a very interesting tshuva in a later one called the Mishpat Eidus. And then we'll be messiahing with a beautiful vart from Menashe Klein who brings us something from his Rebbe. All this has got to be done in 12 minutes. So on page Shevet Levi, Mad Das Rabbeinu Bruchas HaShakla. Now this, interestingly enough, the Shail said, the Shail was Rabbi Yavrov, a big chashav Talmud Chacham, Tzvi Yavrov, some of you may know him, right? Rabbi Trapper, you know him? Tzvi Yavrov. Kidas HaGrashaz, Eirabach, Vagrash, Aliyashiv, Levarch, Vayapriet. Boom. But Mandelbaum said that the Rashi and some Zalman will say SHEHAKOL. So we're confusing. Teretz is Rabbi Yavrov read the Mechushlaima. The Mechushlaima said you make an eighth. Apim Avur Mershim Mishabura, right there, Klais and Paris there, Risuk. Still, it blives eighths. So Rav Vosno is also stuck. He says, bring Bracha Shakat, Habrak Famaduber. I have nothing new to add. Well, from Riyata, how can I paskin you, Yavrov, bring me a psak for these 2 Gedolim? How can I paskin against them? Lafom Riyata Shnei Yedida Ga'inim Varm Sultan. But Ibra calls that this is a Bnei Brak versus Yerushalayim. Ein daiti l'shanait mina ga'ilim levarch SHEHAKOL. Why? Because shako is different. Why? Then he quotes all the places where it shouldn't be different. In Mishabur and Reish Beis, you've cut Mem Daled. In the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Gimel Siv Zayin, the ginger mechaber. It says sends you to another tshuva in the Shevet HaLevi. Why? The shakalad, it comes back to the same svara as everybody else. Skip 10 lines. The shakalad ain't kakao tochon noking buvad. It's not pure. Tasiyah shalkakim harba chemas cocoa. Now we become very important. Chemas cocoa is the cocoa butter. You saw in the video that chocolate is composed of two parts: cocoa butter and this. Now, Rabbi Trapper asked me about milk chocolate. Before we get to milk chocolate, there's something called white chocolate. White chocolate is made out of this cocoa butter.
No cocoa beans.
It has no cocoa in it.
No cocoa in it. Just the cocoa.
So what's the bracha?
Chocolate.
Lily HBachos, because there's no cocoa in it.
Milk chocolate has like 10%.
It doesn't have the ground in it. The tchinas cocoa atzma uktsasmar, b'zelei divrei paiskim. He means the divrei Yosef. V'noiti Yosef bracha SHEHAKOL v'enim neviim heim b'nei neviim heim. He falls on something that the paiskim say when the ganz Klal Yisrael is noyegazoi, can't be that we're making a total tois. And they send you to the Shar Tshuva about Zangville, Huadin. And therefore, I'm not going to change the minhag olam. That's so comfortable because you have a good svara, but I'm not going to change the minhag olam. I saw in a sefer called Mishpat Eidus that he gives another interesting svara. Before I get to conclude here with Masha Klein, I want to conclude with Masha Klein because in addition to the Psak, which is not that much different than what we saw, he has a beautiful part from the Kleisenberg Rebbe at the end, his Rabbi. I want to conclude with that. So in the Sefer Mishpat Eidus, I'm going to summarize it for you. He looks for a reason to take it out of the eights. He says everything that we know. First on page Mem Tes, he tells you what to say there that we saw in unser heilige video. He says, what's the mitzias asiyas kako? And they go through the whole thing. I'm just going to say it very quickly. Achash kaitfenes agarinim. They dry them. The mahalak miyuchat shel yibush. That's not true, by the way. We saw it. It's done by the sun. It's ground into dust. You can't eat it. It's what was that word called? That you roast, you heat it up slowly. What?
Tempering.
Yeah, like the chimum mufar the shumat shabai. This is very important. The white stuff comes out. Me afka yavasha. Va shuma nikra chemas cocoa butter, and the afka is afkas cocoa. The achkach. By the way, just to answer your question, milk chocolate was invented 20 years after Cadbury invented the chocolate making process by the Heilige Nestle's, and they figured out how to put milk into the chocolate. That's all it is, just added milk chocolate. So you'll say milk chocolate, it's not going to be a SHEHAKOL, because now you have another reason to make it a SHEHAKOL because of the milk shabai, assuming that's then all of a sudden you have ikr and tafel shiloh. What's more? It's cocoa to milk. Okay. But therefore you have to get it to a SHEHAKOL otherwise, because then you got to go figure out what's more, and who knows whether milk is more, whether the cocoa is more. My feeling is the cocoa is more. Even in milk chocolate. Even in milk chocolate, the cocoa is more. But if I have milk, that's all. Okay, there you go. Ikr and tafel. So milk chocolate is no shiloh. But it goes through the whole process here. So he's looking for a reason to tell you why it's not an eitz. So he says, I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you a svara why it's not an eitz. And he goes through sugar, which I don't have time, obviously, to go through now. And he tells you an interesting svara. He says, the Gemara talks about something called chometz funiyos. We had it in the Gemara we learned last week, that it's not a pre. Chometz funiyos is something that's made from pre. It's made for vinegar. So it's planted only for vinegar. It's not nechel kedarkam, even though it has a shimish from it, and it's a chometz. The Gemara says chometz funiyos you make a SHEHAKOL. Why? So if you go here to page Nun Aleph, it's Eis Gimel. You can decide whether you like this tushtel or not. On the right side, so it's line 6. Given mitzad machus tivoy, v'derech shimush chalasai, eina mishamash kamaychel. Its natural state, it's not a Michael. So therefore, even if you make it into vinegar, which is a Michael, live the shehakol. Perish Gemara. Oh, Masha tiknu chama brachal priyo Michael eitz, where it's eaten. If you have a pre of an eitz which has no uses of food, you manufactured it. You figured out a way to make it into a Michael. Doesn't turn it into a Michael. And look what he says from Tina Abashul. That if you could have a Paris Ilan Srak, you make a shehakol. This is his svara. He says, I have a reason in the Gemara. Rabbi say this is a well-written tshuva, in my opinion. Not sure who this is. The Baal Mishpat Eidus. But if you need to find a heter, you got to find a Gemara. Or you got to find a major rishon. And he found the Gemara. The Gemara says even though it comes from a grape, it's not an eitz, it's a shehakol. Why? Because you can't eat this little tiny bitter grape. Why? The world has figured out a way to make vinegar out of it. Doesn't matter. It stays a shehakol. He tells this to the chocolate. Very interesting. I liked it. It's a good svara. Let's conclude here with the Mishnah Halachis. So Masha Klein gets asked the same kasha, and he says, the long tshuva, so I'm going to only excerpt a few lines. The beginning of the tshuva. Bina shakolada. The same thing. And this tshuva was written to a Gracer Mensch. Look who he wrote it to. The Shmir Shabbos. Now, so not so shocking, because who would Rav Neuwirth have asked this question to Rabbi Say? No, it's in the heading there, right? It's in the heading. He was in Rishim Kal Teiros. He walked down the base Medrash, and he said, "Rashiva, what's the bracha of chocolate?" And he said, the style of Mishnah Brura Reish Beis, okay? MS Kidom Achlekes Rishayim. The kind of aim be a daily Kimyan Eichlach Reish Ben Armag Dailim. They came in the Nog Alma Varch SHEHAKOL. Arinan Kol Heichad Allah Refeves Biyad Kapul Kazim Mam. The way you go straight to the end. Look to see what the Welt says. I have to tell you, and he goes through sugar, and he goes through the Panamiris, coffee and tea. I'm going scrolling down here, Rabbi Say, and he goes like this. Same svar, Rabbi Say. Elam sukkar metuvel umutum flavored upon shasukru be'emes haroy v'lei shakoladi. Okay, maybe this is Shem Zalman's svara. Elam ken nice and tam amaro kampan. That's Rabbi Sternbuch's svara. Al kapana might see the zev gayer and call sukkar nagam karam v'rach SHEHAKOL. So too on sugar. Okay, and chocolate. Scroll down. Let's conclude here. Next page. Okay, and then he goes through maybe pure cocoa, like downstairs is a bayer pre-8s. Nobody eats it raw. But calls that kasavti lashim in the element of Misrachi l'chadsh chodashim. Well, prat b'dvar meila shenag alma. How can I change the meaning of hundreds of years? In other words, what he says is, don't look for new chumas. Look what he says. And now I will conclude by say, and this is worth the whole thing with a vart from his Rabbi. Who's his Rabbi? I'm starting at 12:59. It's going to take till 1:02. But it was maschel beheter. His Rabbi was the Kleismer Rebbe, the Deriatziv. Ich habe gehört von meinem Rebbe a Pshat and a Plidik Gemara. The Gemara says, the Amaratzim, Tainer na Tamidei Chachamim, Maya Han Alan Rabbanon. What are the rabbis doing for us? What does the Gemara say? What did they taina? Like Sharlan Urba, they weren't matter a raven. A raven is a oif tameh. They didn't tell us we're allowed to eat a raven. Like Asrlan Yaina, and they didn't answer the Yaina. Back to Kleismer Rebbe, Veshlaima Masha Kiblu. Kiblu means they were complaining. Kavlu, I don't know how to pronounce it. Shalai Sharlu Urba Lachia. This fishtayach. They had a taina. Why the rabbis didn't give them a kula? Because they wanted to eat raven. Aval Masha Kibla Rabbanshli Asal Miyaina Makabana. What kind of complaint is this? Well, they want to be from and not eat yaina. I said, don't eat yaina. Why do they have a taina on the rabbis? They didn't answer it. I feel a daitam. A good kasha. What's this Gemara? Simple kasha. Zakta Kleisenberger Rebbe, and he was known for his wit, the tirits. The Hanib Neben Yamin Ashi, that's who these guys were, the Amaratzim. Amru, the Rav, a rabbi, Tzarech Lechadesh Mashu. A rabbi has to come up with new things. Doesn't matter what. Imukal, Yater Eirib, the Yedish Osam Mashu Chidush. He's the Reform rabbi. Afar L'B'Mayu. He should say, Eirib is now I got a Chidush. Okay, I got the conference of Reform rabbis put out a tshuva, and now Erev is mutter. But now they're Manda Omars. Imu Machmer. Yachmer v'yomer de'ezefel yaina surah. Al kalpanam kimshi chadish mashu. As long as they're giving you something new. Memele yodakol ba'alim shemashu ahan rabbana. Now we know the rabbis are worth something. They're either asering, they're either muttering what's aser, or they're asering what's mutter. Al rabbanim say rak mefarshim atayra kipshuta loy eisrim yaina loy matirin urva. Maya hana rabbanan kahani. Says the Kiryatz of Ems Apokursa. Apokursis. He ain't rabbanan rak lefarsh atayra. I'm only here to tell you the pshat. V'zeh she'amar ben Yaina bevidui. On the Erev Kippur, you say this in Yom Kippur Cotton. You say Esashra Sarta Hitarti. Not going to be matter with dimensional asard. Esashra Hitarta Isarti. The Tarvayan Travel Lesur Bechutz Harachti, and therefore, yes, it's true that young Rabbanim in England otherwise, or Mar Shailam, even older Rabbanim, he didn't know about some Zalman, I guess, I don't know. Rabbi Neuwirth didn't tell him where it was coming from, but there's legitimate reason to say that Chochel is Shehakol, Puk Chazi, Ma Ama Devar, can't be at all of Klal Yisrael, been making the wrong bracha for 200 years. There are many Terim for this, and just to Chaz Rabbi say, the Terim are either maybe according to Tzin Abba Shahul, it's not similar. It's similar to a Ilan Srak. According to Rav Shlomo Zalman, it is enough in it, even if it is. It's a ray of other stuff. According to Moshe Sternbach, even if it's a miyat to other stuff, that changed the Torah and the surah, whatever that means. You saw the video, okay? You can tie to the first picture didn't look like the chocolate bar. According to Rav Vosner, according to Rav Menashe Klein, they're not getting into changing halachais. It must be that this taruvais takes it out of the mechaber, ferish mechaber. And we even have to deal with the Arizal. Amazingly enough, which we'll get to, I guess, this week, the Arizal paskin that you have an ilan srak, which is Maitzi a peri, you make a bayre priya eight connected the mechaber and machlekes, and the bonus for us Rabbi side, likes the mechaber and the Arizal. Another one down the block in Tzvas, mamish down the block. When we finish with this verse from the Kleismer Rebbe, I thank you for listening. Tomorrow, the real rabbis will be back. Rabbi Ditsky will be here. At 11 o'clock, we'll start the Psicha, the Simon Reish Gimel, which is the difference between Paris Adama and Paris Eitz. Yasha Keichachem. Tonight, Rabbi Sai. Tonight, the Monday Shir is at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. tonight to take care of the Mincha problem. 7 p.m. tonight, we are going to be doing Hilchai Shavuos. Thank you very much. Yasha Keichachem. 7 o'clock, Rabbanim.